What's up, thinkers? Welcome to the channel. Subscribe for more thoughts that challenge how you see life. Let's begin. Imagine this. An elder stands on a dimly lit path, a faint heartbeat echo tracing behind them as they gaze at a distant light. In that quiet moment, they know something you probably don't want to hear. You will die alone. It's the inevitable truth of life. But what if facing this fact head-on is actually the key to living without fear? In a world obsessed with connections and busyness, admitting that your final moment is ultimately solitary feels horrifying. Yet accepting it may free you from a lifetime of delusion. This isn't morbid pessimism. It's about confronting a terrifying fact with courage and finding freedom in it. Every human being, no matter how surrounded, faces their end in isolation. We rarely discuss it, though. Instead, we obsess over relationships, jobs, status, and leave the hardest truth to the last minute. Statistically, a startling number of people already experience life largely alone. By age 55, more than 15 million Americans have no spouse and no children. Between 20% and 25% of older adults outside nursing homes aren't in regular contact with other people, and this isolation only grows as death approaches. These facts aren't widely reported, but they're real. The COVID pandemic briefly thrust the concept of dying alone into headlines, but once crisis eased, the topic faded again. To most of us, dying alone sounds like the ultimate abandonment, a fate we all dread. But that fear is built on a lie. Let's confront it. Why is the thought of facing death alone so terrifying? Is it because we believe we can't cope without someone holding our hand? Or because it makes us feel utterly insignificant? Both are illusions. In truth, nothing or no one can truly accompany you in those final moments. Even if loved ones surround your bed, your consciousness is your own. The loneliness you fear in that room is no different than the loneliness of day-to-day life. We confuse physical solitude at death with existential abandonment, but they are separate. Philosophers long ago realized that fearing death, and especially dying alone, is irrational. Epicurus famously taught that death is nothing to us. When we exist, death is not, and when death exists, we are not. Seneca similarly reassured his friend that death is so little to be feared. Death itself can't harm you. It simply ends your ability to experience anything at all. This might sound cold, but consider, you've survived every moment without knowing the future up until now. Dying alone is no scarier than being born alone, which we all were. It's society that piles on the horror. We're told endlessly that life's goal is not to die alone, but to find the right partner, to have children, to build a tribe. These expectations are used to sell everything from romance novels to life insurance. They imply that dying alone equals failure. But whose failure? Yours or society's? Epicurus famously taught that death is nothing to us. When we exist, death is not, and when death exists, we are not. Seneca similarly reassured his friend that death is so little to be feared. Death itself can't harm you. It simply ends your ability to experience anything at all. This might sound cold, but consider, you've survived every moment without knowing the future up until now. Dying alone is no scarier than being born alone, which we all were. It's society that piles on the horror. We're told endlessly that life's goal is not to die alone, but to find the right partner, to have children, to build a tribe. These expectations are used to sell everything from romance novels to life insurance. They imply that dying alone equals failure. But whose failure? Yours or society's? The uncomfortable truth is that everyone faces death on their own terms. No one can truly shield you from the end. Rather than waste life chasing external validation or fearing the inevitable, focus on how you live. In fact, the people who study death closely tell us that their biggest regrets have nothing to do with dying alone. Palliative care nurse Bronnie Ware listened to countless dying patients in their final weeks. Time and again, their top regret was not, "I wish I hadn't died alone," but things like, "I wish I'd had the courage to live a life true to myself, not the life others expected of me," and "I wish I hadn't worked so hard." They expressed remorse over unlived dreams and unspoken feelings, not oversleeping through their last hours in silence. In those moments, as one patient noted, it all comes down to love and relationships, but mostly the love and values they carried with them. Think about it. When you finally lie on your deathbed, you won't be praying for someone to save you from that moment. You'll be hoping you had the guts to save yourself long before. If you've been living authentically, making your own choices, and loving deeply, then dying alone can almost feel like coming home. It's the culmination of your journey, not some judgment on your worth. Some people even embrace this idea by choice. Take 80-year-old Elva Roy as an example. After 30 years of living independently, she says she doesn't want anyone by her side when she dies. "I would not feel comforted by someone being there holding my hand," she says. "I'm really okay with dying by myself." To most, that sounds shocking or even cold. Why refuse compassion in your final moments? But to Elva, it's about control and authenticity. She has lived on her own terms all these years, and she'll die as she's lived. Her acceptance of solitude gives her peace, not panic. Yes, some people will be in the room when you die, a child, a spouse, a friend, and their presence may provide comfort for them, but your inner experience is yours alone. Those people will continue living their lives after you pass, with or without your sign-off. Knowing this, the most important thing you can do is live a life you're proud of. The evidence from those who've faced death is clear. They wish they'd been true to themselves, not that more people attended their funeral. Now, consider this. If dying alone isn't some cosmic failure, what does it say if you fear it so much? It says you're buying into a lie that your life's value is tied to others. The real horror is not death itself, but dying without ever having truly lived for yourself. Reflect for a moment. If you were to watch your final days play out like a movie, would you spend that time regretting that no one held your hand? Or would you wish you had taken more risks, loved more deeply, been more yourself? The experts who study end-of-life reflections suggest the latter. Carpe diem wasn't just an empty slogan. It's the antidote to the fear of dying alone. Live fully now, so dying alone feels like a quiet curtain call to a show well done, not a tragedy. Here are some signs that you're already on the path toward embracing this truth. You value your own companionship. You can be alone with your thoughts and feel content, rather than lonely. You don't constantly need other people to fill silence, because you're comfortable hearing yourself. You question societal expectations. When the world tells you, you should do X, Y, and Z to be happy, you feel uncomfortable. You know deep down that following someone else's script led to regret in others, and you want to chart your own course. You live by your own values. Instead of chasing social media or running in someone else's race, you focus on your personal goals. You prioritize what you find fulfilling, not what you think will impress others. You've faced uncomfortable truths. Perhaps you've already stared down tough realities, financial ups and downs, health scares, or even the idea of your own death, and found that fearing them had been more painful than the reality. Each time you did, you realized you can handle more than you thought. If these sound familiar, you're already closer to peace with the idea of being alone at the end. And if not, that's okay too. Nobody starts perfect. What matters is cultivating honesty and courage every day, living as your own hero. At the end of the day, your death is personal, but your life can be communal. You will draw your last breath by yourself, but you can spend your life lifting others and contributing to something larger on your terms. Many great contributors to art, science, and philosophy felt isolation at times, yet changed the world with the time they did have. They didn't live for validation. They lived for meaning. When you realize that, the fear of dying alone shrinks in comparison. We all have a choice. Live anxiously for others' approval, or live boldly for our own values. The perspective that you will die alone cuts through every illusion about what you need. It says, don't waste your limited time on what doesn't matter. Invest it in creativity, compassion, self-knowledge, or any pursuit that feels true to you. And remember, on that final day, you've earned the right to be proud of how you lived. You don't have to be happy about dying alone. Few would brag about it, but you can be okay with it. You can even treat it as a final affirmation that you lived as an individual, not as an accessory in someone else's story. Jung put it well. Your vision will become clear only when you can look into your own heart. Who looks outside, dreams. Who looks inside, awakes. Once you truly look inside, and realize you won't be saved or judged by anyone at the end, you can awaken to a life you own. So, ask yourself, How will you live knowing your end is coming, and it's coming for you, alone? Will you continue running in the rat race for someone else's approval, or will you start living for the approval you give yourself? The choice is yours. In a world that profits from your fear, deciding to accept your mortality and embrace solitude is the ultimate rebellion, and perhaps the most honest thing you'll ever do. If this made you think, if it made you breathe a little deeper, hit like. It tells the algorithm that truth still matters. And remember, facing death honestly is the beginning of living honestly. See you in the next one.